Captain Maya Rodriguez's palms sweat inside her formal diplomatic gloves as she stands before the Galactic Council. The vast chamber, with its floating platforms and crystalline architecture, hums with the whispers of 100 alien species. As Earth's representative in the final stages of humanity's admission to the interstellar Concordat, she feels the weight of history on her shoulders. A holographic display shows Earth's classification. Class 12 Deathworld species. Provisional containment status. Lifted. You understand, the Trilaxian counselor says, his translucent appendages rippling with polite skepticism. Many still question whether creatures evolved to survive daily catastrophic weather events, omnipresent predators, and lethal microorganisms can truly integrate. Maya smiles with practiced diplomacy, suppressing the urge to point out that the Trilaxian would die from a simple Earth rainfall. Instead, she activates the cultural presentation. Earth's symphonies, philosophical treaties, and art fill the chamber with color and sound, drawing appreciative clicks and hums from the council. Behind her perfect composure, Maya harbors a crushing secret. Quantum intelligence reports confirm a massive invasion fleet from the militant Vexari Empire is preparing to strike the Concordat's central worlds. The humans have alerted the council, but were patronizingly dismissed. Your species' tendency toward paranoia is well documented, the security minister had said. That night, as Maya transmits coded updates to Earth Command from her quarters, she removes a hidden panel revealing a military-grade neural interface. As she plugs in, her diplomatic poise melts away, replaced by the focused intensity of a combat veteran. The operation plans she reviews would horrify their new allies, but they might be the only thing that saves them all when the Vexari arrive. The interface projects directly into her visual cortex, displaying the defensive grid Earth has secretly established throughout Concordat space. Orbital platforms disguised as scientific observation posts. Emergency response teams embedded within cultural exchange programs. Weapons caches hidden inside art installations donated to various Concordat worlds. Status update on contingency Heimdall. She subvocalizes, the neural pickup translating her micro-expressions into commands. A holographic lieutenant commander appears in her mind's eye. We've accelerated deployment, Captain. 18 outposts are combat-ready. 7 more will be operational within 72 hours. The fleet elements concealed in the Kuiper trading outpost can deploy within 6 hours of your signal. Maya nods, feeling the familiar weight of command settling onto shoulders that have spent too long practicing the elegant posture expected of a diplomat. And the council members, she asks. Individual security details have been assigned to each high-priority target. The commander's expression remains neutral. Teams are in position, disguised as domestic staff, cultural attaches, or personal assistants. Maya accesses the personnel files, studying the faces of the human operatives who've spent years embedding themselves in the households of Concordat leaders, learning alien languages, customs, and diets while maintaining deep cover. All highly trained soldiers playing the roles of servants, scholars, and artists. They don't suspect anything, she asks. No, Captain. The Ashera counselor actually wrote a poem praising his chef's gentle soul last week. A hint of irony crosses the commander's face. Said chef was formerly Force Recon, specialized in zero-atmosphere combat. Maya closes the connection, removing the neural spike from her temple. She returns to the diplomat's quarters, pausing before the mirror to practice her expressions. The polite smile, the attentive gaze, the subtle tilt of the head that the Pelori consider respectful. The face of peaceful humanity that the Concordat finds acceptable. Tomorrow she'll stand before them again, lobbying for expanded cultural exchange programs that will allow more human artists and scholars to establish residence on key Concordat worlds. Meanwhile, Earth's shipyards work overtime, building vessels with hidden weapons systems and troop deployment capabilities, all classified as diplomatic escort ships. Maya's reflection stares back at her with eyes far older than her 37 years. The question isn't whether the Vexari will attack anymore. Intelligence is certain of that. The question is whether humanity's carefully constructed facade will hold long enough to get their defenses in place before the storm breaks. The botanical gardens of Meridian Prime dazzle with bioluminescent flora from 100 worlds, as Dr. Elijah Chen, humanity's foremost xenobiologist, charms a circle of Concordat scientists with tales of Earth's rainforests. His genuine passion isn't feigned, but his purpose is dual-layered. As he casually brushes against a Volari diplomat, his epidermis-embedded sensors collect cellular samples, adding to his classified biological database on Concordat species. Fascinating that your immune systems develop to be so aggressive, purrs Science Minister Talvi, her feline-like features betraying a hint of distaste. A necessary adaptation to your world's challenges. Across the pavilion, Admiral Jackson, Earth's military attaché, white-knuckles his champagne flute as a Polari diplomat with skin like polished marble smiles condescendingly. "You've made remarkable progress," the Polari says, his translator barely keeping up with his musical speech. "Only 3 centuries ago, your kind was still engaging in planet-wide conflicts. How wonderfully restrained you've become since abandoning your unfortunate propensity for warfare." Jackson forces a diplomatic smile, fighting the urge to mention that his great-grandfather died defending Seoul, or that his combat implants are currently calculating 17 ways to incapacitate the Polari using only the decorative fountain nearby. Later that night, at the newly established human embassy on Concordat Prime, Ambassador Wei oversees the cultural artifact installation. As the massive sculpture of Earth's ancient mythological figures is positioned in the central courtyard, only Wei and the installation team know about the Tactical Operations Center hidden inside its base, or the weapon systems disguised as decorative elements. Meanwhile, Elijah's assistant, Dr. Kwan, makes an extraordinary discovery in the Concordat's historical archives, records deliberately buried in obscure subclassifications. The holographic images show the gentle Ashera, now known for their poetry and pacifism, conducting brutal orbital bombardments. Another file reveals the Trilaxians engaged in methodical genocide of a rival species. "They were all like us once," Kwan whispers to Elijah in their secure lab. "Every single evolved species. They just buried their violent past and pretended they'd outgrown it. We're not evolutionary aberrations. We're just honest about what we are." Elijah stares at the evidence, a chill running down his spine. "The question is," he says, "did they truly evolve beyond violence, or did they just forget how to fight?" The next morning, under the pretense of collaborative research, Elijah guides a small delegation of Concordat biologists through the Human Research Annex. The facility gleams with cutting-edge technology, ostensibly devoted to medical breakthroughs and cross-species health initiatives. "And this chamber?" asks Dr. Seleth, a Volari geneticist, gesturing toward a heavily shielded room. "Adaptive immunotherapy research," Elijah explains smoothly. "Earth pathogens mutate with extraordinary speed. We've developed specialized responses." The alien scientists nod appreciatively, none recognizing the equipment for what it truly is, a bioweapon defense laboratory analyzing how various toxins might affect Concordat species should hostile forces deploy them. The data gathered here has already informed the vaccination protocols secretly administered to all human diplomatic personnel. After the tour concludes, Elijah retreats to his private office. He raises his palm to a seemingly decorative wall panel, the dermal sensors reading not just his fingerprints, but his specific cellular signature, revealing a hidden communication array. "Chen reporting," he subvocalizes. "Biological profiles of 17 principal species now complete. Vulnerability assessment updated." The secure channel carries his report directly to Earth Defense Command. The data he's collected not to harm their allies, but to protect them, though he suspects the Concordat might not appreciate the distinction. The intelligence includes medical treatments specifically tailored for each species, countermeasures against potential biological attacks, and yes, information that could be weaponized if the unthinkable became necessary. After transmitting his report, Elijah reviews the historical files Quan discovered. Each image tells the same story. Species who now prided themselves on their evolved sensibilities had once been as violent as humanity, perhaps worse. The difference wasn't biological but cultural, and critically, temporal. They had simply been spacefaring longer, had their brutal wars earlier, and had the luxury of forgetting their violent roots. He activates a private recording module, speaking softly for his personal research log. Concordat species don't lack the capacity for violence. They've merely forgotten the necessity of it. When the Vexari come, they won't just be facing unprepared victims. They'll be awakening ancient instincts these people don't even remember they possess. The grand ballroom of the Concordat Council Tower gleams with crystalline chandeliers as representatives from 87 worlds celebrate the anniversary of the Charter of Peaceful Cooperation. Captain Rodriguez makes polite conversation with a Thetian ambassador when the first vibration hits, subtle enough that only a human raised on a seismically active planet would notice. 3 seconds later, the quantum displacement alarms wail. The Vexari fleet materializes directly above 3 major Concordat worlds simultaneously. Massive warships bristling with weapons thought mythological by most Concordat species. The council chamber dissolves into chaos. The Ashera representative faints. The Trilaxian delegation forms a trembling consensus circle, desperately trying to process this impossibility. The defense minister, whose species hasn't seen actual combat in 12 generations, stares helplessly at malfunctioning tactical displays. Activate the planetary shields. Someone shouts. They require council consensus tow. Another begins. The activation codes haven't been updated since. Rodriguez slips away during the confusion, heading not for the evacuation pods but deeper into the restricted sections of the council tower. On New Geneva, Ambassador Wee stands motionless at his reinforced window as Vexari shock troops with exoskeletons resembling giant arachnids herd terrified Concordat citizens into processing centers. The embassy staff have already activated their emergency protocols, changing from formal attire into form-fitting garments that hardened observers might recognize as military-grade impact armor. Outside, a small Ashera child trips and falls. When its parent moves to help, a Vexari soldier casually swings its weapon, separating the family. The child's wails penetrate even the embassy's soundproofed walls. Wei's gentle diplomat's face hardens into something ancient and predatory. He turns to his communications officer. Protocol Fenris is now in effect. The officer swallows hard, knowing what this means. All of it, sir. There are still diplomatic. All of it, Wei says, his voice flat as he watches another child being dragged from its parent. They've made their choice. Across human space, military reserves receive activation codes. On 17 Concordat worlds, cultural attaches unlock hidden compartments in their quarters, retrieving weapons and tactical gear. Diplomatic pouches are opened, revealing not documents but compact military hardware. Back in the council tower, Rodriguez, having stunned 2 security guards with hand-to-hand techniques no one expected from a ceremonial representative, breaks into a secure communications room. Bypassing the authentication systems with implants disguised as decorative jewelry, she sends a single encrypted message to all human outposts throughout Concordat space. The mask comes off. Now, the message travels through channels hidden within the Concordat's own communication network, pathways inserted by human technical advisors who had volunteered to help upgrade the aging system. As confirmation signals return, Rodriguez accesses a secondary system disguised as environmental controls. The council tower's architectural plans have been studied exhaustively by human analysts who identified 27 potential vulnerabilities. Now, Rodriguez activates countermeasures for all of them. Security barriers designed to prevent forced entry are equally effective at preventing forced exit. With precise keystrokes, she locks down critical sectors of the massive structure. Attention Concordat, security forces. She speaks into the override comm system, her voice now carrying the unmistakable command presence of a military officer. This is Captain Rodriguez of Earth Defense Force. The Vexari have deployed boarding parties to this structure. All personnel, implement Emergency Protocol 7. There is no Emergency Protocol 7 in the Concordat Security Manual, but the human security advisors had incorporated it into training sessions over the past year, describing it as theoretical preparation for the unimaginable scenario of hostile forces breaching the tower. Rodriguez watches on security monitors as Concordat security personnel, many of whom have never drawn their ceremonial weapons in actual service, begin implementing the protocol with surprising efficiency. They don't realize they've been subconsciously drilled by human operators to execute basic defensive tactics under the guise of cultural exchange exercises and collaborative security simulations. From a hidden compartment in her formal diplomatic attire, Rodriguez retrieves a compact device that unfolds into a functional combat headset. The tactical overlay illuminates her visual field with threat assessments, structural weaknesses, and the positions of the 12 human operatives embedded throughout the tower. Sierra Team, rendezvous at Convergence Point Alpha, she orders. Prepare for defensive action and Council protection detail. As she moves through the restricted corridors toward the Council's secure bunker, Rodriguez acknowledges the bitter irony. For all their apparent naivety, the Concordat species had insisted on building extensive emergency shelters into their grand tower, legacy of wars they claimed to have evolved beyond. Now those same shelters would become their salvation. In her ear, the encoded tactical channel brings reports from across Concordat space as humanity's hidden warriors awaken to their true purpose. Supreme War Leader Kraz stalks the command center of his forward operating base on New Geneva, his chitinous exoskeleton clicking with irritation. The holographic displays show the planet largely secured. Resistance from the Concordat species had been pathetic, as expected from civilizations that had outsourced their defense to automated systems for millennia. Status report on the human diplomatic compound, he demands, mandibles flexing. His intelligence officer approaches cautiously. Unusual activity, or leader. Their embassy appears to be changing. On the display, the elegant neoclassical human embassy with its flowing gardens and artistic elements is physically transforming. Decorative columns retract, revealing weapon emplacements. The graceful dome splinters into armored segments. The charming fountain in the courtyard drains, its basin sliding open to reveal what appears to be a missile silo. Defensive measures only, Kraz dismisses with a wave of his primary appendage. Intelligence-indicated humans are physically formidable, but fundamentally non-aggressive. Cultural observers, not warriors. Send a patrol to secure their surrender. 12 minutes later, the patrol fails to report in. Send another squad. Kraz orders, irritation mounting. With surveillance drones. The live feed from the second patrol shows 6 Vexari warriors in full battle armor approaching the embassy's perimeter. A figure emerges. Ambassador Wei, still dressed in his formal diplomatic uniform, hands empty, smiling politely. I wish to discuss terms. The human calls out in perfect Vexari. The squad leader moves forward, weapon trained on the ambassador. The drone's audio captures his response. Your surrender is the only term, human. What happens next causes the command center to fall silent. Wei's diplomatic smile vanishes. His body, previously relaxed and non-threatening, shifts subtly. Then he moves with a speed the drone's processors struggle to capture. The ceremonial letter opener, a gift from the Ashera delegation, becomes a blur in Wei's hand. 3 Vexari warriors fall before their neural systems can register the attack. As they collapse, Wei retrieves a warrior's sidearm, modifies it with components torn from his own diplomatic comm unit, and the improvised explosive takes down 2 more. The squad leader fires, hitting Wei in the shoulder, but the human doesn't even flinch, a reaction impossible for species not evolved to compartmentalize pain. Within 28 seconds, all 6 warriors lie incapacitated or dead. Wei looks directly at the drone, his face now utterly transformed. No longer the gentle diplomat, but something ancient and predatory. "Your terms are not acceptable," he says coldly, then destroys the drone with a precisely aimed stone. Across 3 invaded worlds, similar reports flood Vexeri command networks. Humans emerging from their enclaves not as frightened diplomats, but as coordinated strike teams. Surveillance footage shows human cultural attaches, professors and diplomatic aides moving with military precision, utilizing modified civilian equipment as weapons with lethal efficiency. In the Vexeri detention center on Concordat Prime, captured aliens watch in shock as their human cellmate, previously a quiet embassy receptionist, systematically disassembles her restraints using nothing but the flexible wire from her undergarment. When the guard enters, she moves with blinding speed, using the wire as a garrote. 10 minutes later, she has freed an entire cell block. What are you?" a trembling Ashera asks as the human efficiently strips weapons from fallen guards. The woman glances back, her previously pleasant features now set in a cold mask of focused lethality. "Just someone from a world that tried to kill us every day," she answers simply, tossing the Ashera a weapon. "Now decide if you want to live or die on your knees." The command center's atmosphere shifts from puzzlement to growing alarm as tactical displays light up with unexpected resistance points. Kraz examines footage of a human female, identified in Concordat records as a culinary exchange specialist, systematically eliminating an entire Vexeri patrol using kitchen implements. "This is impossible," his tactical officer hisses. "Our intelligence was explicit. Humans maintain minimal military forces. Their combat capacity was rated negligible." Kraz magnifies the image of a fallen patrol leader. The wound pattern is precise, targeting neural clusters and joint weaknesses in the exoskeleton that few species should even know about. Yet this culinary specialist had struck with uncanny precision. A subordinate approaches with trembling appendages. "War leader, we've intercepted communications from the human diplomatic corps. It appears every human representative in Concordat space has received the same activation phrase." "What phrase?" Kraz demands. The mask comes off. Kraz feels an unfamiliar sensation rippling through his nervous system, something Vexeri warriors are conditioned to suppress: fear. He toggles the command frequency. "All units, priority alert. Humans are to be considered primary threat targets. Repeat, humans are priority targets regardless of their diplomatic status." On the displays, red indicators multiply as human resistance cells activate across occupied territories. What's most disturbing isn't their numbers. Humans are a minority in Concordat space, but their effectiveness. Each strike is precise, targeting critical infrastructure rather than engaging in frontal assaults. "They were ready for us," Kraz realizes with dawning horror. The entire diplomatic mission was a cover. His intelligence analyst, reviewing captured Concordat security footage, confirms the worst. Each human delegation included individuals with military experience. Their cultural exchanges placed operatives on every strategic world. The artwork they donated to public spaces contained concealed weapon caches. The implications hit Kraz with physical force. The Vexeri Empire had conquered 17 peaceful civilizations by exploiting their demilitarized status. Now, for the first time, they face an adversary who anticipated them, who prepared for this moment while pretending to be something they were not. The Vexeri detection grid at the edge of the New Geneva system identifies the approaching vessels as human diplomatic escort fleet, 6 elegant ships with sleek lines and minimal weapons signatures. War leader Kraz orders standard containment protocols, dispatching a dozen warships to intercept. On the bridge of the UES Nightingale, Admiral Helena Dias sits motionless in her command chair. Once a hospital ship named for an Earth healer, the vessel had been repurposed behind layers of diplomatic paperwork and engineering misdirection. "Time to intercept?" she asks, her voice calm. 4 minutes. "Admiral," her tactical officer responds. Vexari vessels moving to standard containment formation. Diaz nods once. Initiate Protocol Thanatos. The bridge darkens as systems previously hidden behind false bulkheads and energy masking technology come online. The elegant diplomatic vessel sheds its facade, weapon ports opening along its hull. Concordat regulations prohibit warships of this class, her first officer murmurs. We never signed those particular regulations. Diaz replies simply. Weapons free. Execute simultaneous strikes. All 6 human vessels transform in unison, their true nature revealed. The Vexari fleet, expecting a diplomatic surrender, finds itself facing purpose-built warships with technology specifically designed to counter their defenses. As the space battle unfolds, drop pods disguised as escape vessels launch toward the occupied planets. Inside each, human special forces soldiers, many recruited from Earth's most unforgiving environments, prepare for planetfall. On Concordat Prime, Captain Rodriguez has established a resistance headquarters in the abandoned subterranean transit tunnels. Around her, representatives from 7 Concordat species watch nervously as she disassembles and reassembles a modified Vexari rifle, explaining its weaknesses. Their exoskeletons are vulnerable at the joint seams, she demonstrates on a holographic model. And their visual processors can't handle sudden changes in light intensity. A flashbang will disorient them for approximately 8.3 seconds. How do you know this? A Trilaxian academic asks, tentacles trembling. Your species has never encountered Vexari before. Rodriguez smiles grimly. We studied them, just like we studied all potentially hostile species, while pretending to be interested only in cultural exchange. The Trilaxian realizes. We were interested in cultural exchange. Rodriguez corrects, checking the power cell on her weapon. We just weren't naive about the universe. Now, who wants to learn how to make explosives from kitchen chemicals? Across 3 worlds, the Vexari invasion force, accustomed to ceremonial surrender from technically advanced, but physically unaggressive species, encounters something they've never faced: close-quarters combat with Deathworlders. Human soldiers fight with a ferocity that shocks even veteran Vexari warriors. When wounded, humans continue fighting. When outnumbered, they use the environment as a weapon. When cornered, they become even more lethal. In a Vexari command bunker, Lieutenant Marichen, listed in Concordat diplomatic records as a cultural heritage specialist, moves through darkened corridors, eliminating sentries with brutal efficiency. Blood seeps from a wound in her side where chitinous shrapnel penetrated her armor, but her vital signs implant has already released targeted stimulants to compensate. Her mission: capture the regional command codes to disable the orbital defenses. 3 days later, a captured Vexari officer is brought before the Concordat Council in exile. The once proud warrior's exoskeleton is cracked, his mandibles twitching with stress hormones. They don't stop, he chitlers, compound eyes darting nervously. We shot 1 human 6 times, standard kills for any rational species, and it kept coming, sealed its own wounds with burning metal, and eliminated an entire squad before collapsing. The council members exchange horrified glances. Another unit reported humans operating continuously for 4 days without sleep, taking stimulants that would kill most species. The Vexari continues, trembling. They're not people, he whispers. There's something else wearing people's skins. The Nightingale's emergency medical bay functions at triple capacity as Dr. Sarah Nguyen, formerly introduced to the Concordat as an expert in xenobiological meditation techniques, performed her 17th combat surgery of the day. Her specialized neural implants interface directly with medical drones, allowing her to operate on multiple patients simultaneously. We're out of synthetic hemoglobin, a medic reports. Switching to blood donors. Nguyen nods without looking up from the complex thoracic reconstruction. She's performing on a Marine who took shrapnel to the chest. Start with O native personnel, and prepare 2 more operating theaters. The strike team from Sector 7 is incoming with casualties. Within minutes, off-duty personnel line up to donate blood for their wounded comrades, a procedure practiced religiously during what the Concordat had been told were routine health screenings for diplomatic staff. Outside the medical bay, Commander Isamu Tanaka monitors the tactical display showing the Nightingale's sister ships engaging the Vexeri fleet. The supposedly ceremonial vessels now reveal their true purpose: wolf ships designed for pack-hunting tactics against numerically superior forces. Avalanche formation, Tanaka mutters, recognizing the maneuver, just like the simulations. For 3 years, human naval strategists had run countless battle scenarios against hypothetical Vexeri fleet configurations, refining their tactics using data gathered by scientific observation outposts placed at strategic points throughout Concordat space. On the planet's surface below, a Concordat resistance cell led by a human botanical researcher named Kazuki Yamamoto detonates precisely placed explosives at a Vexeri supply depot. The attack isn't just destructive, it's surgical, designed to disable the enemy's logistics chain rather than inflict maximum casualties. "How did you know exactly where to place the charges?" asks an Ashera resistance fighter, watching in awe as the entire facility collapses while leaving adjacent civilian structures untouched. Yamamoto's gentle smile doesn't reach his eyes. "Before I studied plants, I had a different specialization, and humans never really forget their first profession." The Makeshift War Council convenes in what was once a botanical meditation chamber. Now, holographic tactical displays have replaced the delicate floating gardens, and the soothing ambient music has given way to status reports and damage assessments. 2 weeks into the counter-offensive, human forces have recaptured key infrastructure on all 3 occupied worlds, but tensions with Concordat leadership grow with each victory. Elder Lorax of the Firelli, a species known for their empathic abilities and aesthetic philosophies, stares at the live feed showing human marines engaging Vexeri troops in the ruins of what was once a cultural heritage site. The humans move with predatory grace, using debris as cover, communicating through hand signals that Lorax recognizes with horror as an evolved hunting language. "They're enjoying it," he whispers, translucent skin flushing with distress pheromones. "They aren't just fighting. They're hunting." Dr. Chen, his formal xenobiologist's attire now replaced with practical combat gear, meets the Elder's gaze steadily. "With respect, Elder, we're winning. For your people. But at what cost?" The Firelli's voice rises. "We welcomed you into the Concordat believing you had overcome your violent origins, that your species had achieved enlightenment. Instead, we find you've merely been, what? Pretending." The chamber falls silent. Representatives from 7 Concordat species watch Chen expectantly. "We never pretended," Chen says finally, his voice quiet but firm. "We showed you our art, our philosophy, our medicines, all real aspects of human civilization. We simply didn't volunteer the rest. The rest being that you remained savages beneath a veneer of civilization," a Trilaxian diplomat interjects. Chen's eyes flash, but he controls his temper, a very human struggle that the empathic Firelli can sense. "We come from a world that tried to kill us every day," Chen explains, activating a holographic display showing Earth's evolutionary history, massive predators, natural disasters, plagues, where everything was either predator or prey. We built civilization not because we evolved beyond violence, but because we channeled it. He switches the display to show human history, wars giving way to peace treaties, weapons research leading to medical breakthroughs. "We didn't deceive you. We simply presented our best face while keeping our survival instincts ready." And now, he gestures to the tactical displays showing human forces pushing back the Vexeri. "You should be grateful we did." Meanwhile, on New Geneva, Lieutenant Commander Ishani Rao, formerly attaché to the Human Cultural Mission, now revealed as Special Forces, leads a strike team through the captured Vexeri command nexus. The aliens had built their headquarters inside what was once the Concordati's grandest library, their command consoles desecrating ancient manuscript collections. "Get me into their core database," Rao orders, as her tech specialist interfaces human decryption algorithms with the alien system. The data they discover sends chills through even the battle-hardened team. The Vexari invasion wasn't random. It was the latest in a systematic campaign spanning 3 neighboring galaxies. Their method: identify post-conflict civilizations, those who had evolved beyond warfare, and systematically conquer them, harvesting resources and enslaving populations with minimal resistance. But the most disturbing discovery comes in a classified strategic assessment. The Vexari had specifically accelerated their timetable to attack the Concordat because of humanity's pending admission. Threat assessment: critical. The document reads, "Unlike other Concordat species, humans show signs of retained combat capability despite technological advancement. Recommendation: immediate containment and selective extermination before full integration with Concordat defense networks." Rao stares at the assessment, understanding flooding through her. They weren't just invading, she tells her team. They were rushing to eliminate us before we could help the Concordat. We were the only species they actually feared. Back in the War Council, a message arrives from Rao's team. As Chen reviews the intelligence, his expression darkens. He forwards the findings to the gathered representatives, watching as understanding registers on alien faces. "By the celestial harmonic," whispers a Pelori counselor, their musical voice discordant with shock. They'd done this 17 times before. Entire civilizations erased. Chen nods grimly. And we would have been next if we hadn't prepared. An uncomfortable silence falls as the implications sink in. Finally, Elder Lorax speaks, his empathic senses having processed both the information and the complex human emotional responses to it. "You knew this might happen," he says slowly. "Not specifically the Vexari, perhaps, but something like this. We hoped it wouldn't," Chen admits, "but Earth's history taught us to prepare for the worst while working toward the best." The Trilaxian diplomat who had accused humans of savagery now studies Chen with new understanding. "Your capacity for violence isn't primitive evolution. It's deliberate retention." Chen meets the alien's gaze. "Every human artwork we shared with you, every philosophical treatise, every medical breakthrough, these are genuine expressions of who we are. But so is this." He gestures to the tactical display showing human combat operations. "We never evolved beyond the capacity for violence. We simply learned when to use it, and when not to." "And who authorized these preparations?" asks the Pelori representative. "Your diplomatic corps operated under false pretenses for years." "Not false," Chen corrects. "Incomplete. And as for authorization..." He hesitates, then decides on honesty. "It was unanimous. Every human government agreed." This revelation stuns the Council. The idea that an entire species could maintain such coordination, such discipline in preparing for a theoretical threat. It challenges everything they thought they knew about humans. "You've been united in this deception from the beginning," the Ashera counselor realizes. "United in survival," Chen corrects, "which is exactly what we're offering you now." The emergency council session begins in chaos. Holographic feeds from 2 Concordat worlds, Elysium and New Harmony, show devastation on a scale incomprehensible to species who had lived in peace for millennia. The Vexari, facing unexpected defeat by human-led forces, have deployed banned planet-killer weapons against civilian population centers. The casualty estimates scroll across the displays. 4.2 million on Elysium, 6.7 million on New Harmony. Among the dead are 312 human diplomatic staff and their families. Admiral Diaz, attending via secure quantum link from her flagship, watches as the Concordat representatives cycle through shock, grief, and despair. When the Ashera representative collapses, overcome by empathic feedback from the suffering worlds, Dias's expression hardens. Earth Command is initiating Protocol Ragnarok, she announces, her voice cutting through the lamentations. Effective immediately. Elder Lorax looks up, tears streaming down his translucent face. What is Ragnarok? In ancient human mythology, Ambassador Wei explains quietly, it was the end of the world, the final battle. The council chamber falls silent as the implications register. Across Concordat space, hidden installations activate. On 17 supposedly uninhabited moons, automated factories that officially don't exist begin producing weapon systems that technically violate a dozen Concordat treaties humanity never actually signed. From concealed hangars emerge vessels that represent the full, unleashed potential of humanity's martial engineering. On the Vexeri command carrier orbiting the devastated world of Elysium, High Commander Vrex receives disturbing reports from his sensor officers. Impossible, he chitlers, compound eyes scanning the data. These energy signatures would require technology centuries beyond. The massive view screen flickers, then displays Admiral Diaz's face. Behind her stands a row of human officers, their formal diplomatic uniforms replaced by sleek black combat gear. This is Admiral Helena Diaz of Earth Force Command to all Vexori vessels. She states, her voice devoid of emotion. You have deployed prohibited weapons against civilian targets. You have committed genocide against non-combatant populations. There will be no further communication. There will be no surrender accepted. In orbital shipyards throughout the Concordat, supposedly ceremonial human vessels transform, weapon systems previously concealed behind diplomatic exceptions coming online. From Earth itself emerges the real human fleet, not the token defensive force they had publicly maintained, but the full martial might of a species that never truly believed the universe was safe. The Vexeri Empire, which has conquered 17 peaceful civilizations, now faces not the limited defensive action they expected, but the unbridled wrath of Deathworlders who had merely been playing at diplomacy. On the command deck of the UES Thermopylae, Lieutenant Commander Sofia Rodriguez, Captain Maya Rodriguez's younger sister, watches tactical displays showing their approach to the Vexori homeworld. Around her, crew members who once posed as cultural attaches and diplomatic aides now sit at weapon stations and tactical interfaces with practiced efficiency. They're rallying every remaining ship to defend their core worlds, her tactical officer reports. Estimated Vexeri combat vessels, 3,000 plus. And our allies? Rodriguez asks. The Concordat can field only ceremonial vessels, no real combat capability. He hesitates. We're on our own. Rodriguez studies the display showing their forces, far fewer in number, but designed by engineers who never forgot that their ancestors survived by outthinking bigger predators. Good, she says simply. Across 17 human vessels, Admiral Diaz addresses her combined fleet. Her words, later inscribed on monuments throughout the Concordat, echo through command chambers and crew quarters. Humanity joined the Concordat in good faith. We shared our art, our philosophy, our healing. We kept our teeth hidden because we understood that peace requires trust. The Vexeri mistook our restraint for weakness. They believed that beneath our civility, we had forgotten what we are. Her eyes harden. Let us remind them. They wanted monsters. Let's show them what monsters from a death world can do. On Elysium, amid the radioactive ruins of what was once the planet's most populous city, Captain Nadia Volkov leads a team through the devastation. Her official Concordat designation was cultural anthropologist, and she had spent 4 years documenting the artistic traditions of the native Elysians. Now, her expertise in their architecture allows her to navigate the collapsed structures with deadly efficiency. Life signs detected, reports her scanner specialist, pointing toward a half-collapsed educational center. Multiple juveniles. Volkov's team shifts instantly from combat mode to rescue operations. The same enhanced strength and endurance that makes humans lethal fighters now serves to move rubble and extract survivors. With methodical precision, they stabilize injured Elysian children with medical technology that had been classified as experimental xenobiological research equipment in their diplomatic papers. As the rescue operation continues, Volkov receives an encrypted transmission from Earth Command. The message is brief. Protocol Ragnarok has entered Phase 2. All restrictions on previously embargoed technologies are lifted. Volkov gestures to her communications specialist. Signal the thesis, she orders. Tell them to deploy the recovery pods. Within minutes, sleek cylinders descend from orbit, landing with precision around the devastated city. The pods unfold to reveal what Concordat officials had been told were theoretical medical restoration systems, technology that humans had developed but kept sequestered due to ethical considerations. In reality, they are battlefield regeneration units, designed to operate in radiation-soaked environments where conventional medical facilities would fail. As the first Elysian survivors enter the pods, a Concordat medical officer watches in stunned silence. "You had this capability all along," she asks Volkov. Technology that could have benefited billions across Concordat space. Volkov meets her gaze steadily. "Some technologies are too dangerous to share until you're certain of your allies," she answers simply. The same systems that heal can be weaponized by those who understand their principles. The implication hangs heavy in the air. Humans had withheld not just their martial capabilities, but their most advanced humanitarian technologies as well, everything compartmentalized according to potential threat assessments. Concordat Prime gleams in the light of its twin suns, the damaged sectors already rebuilding under the coordinated efforts of 17 species. 3 months after the Vexari surrender, the Grand Council chamber, now restored to its crystalline splendor, hosts a special session that will define interstellar relations for generations to come. Captain Rodriguez, now General Rodriguez, stands at the center of the chamber, the formal white uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps now augmented with the battle decorations she earned leading the liberation of Concordat Prime. The atmosphere is dramatically different from her first appearance in this chamber. The Concordat races no longer view humans with condescending tolerance, but with a complex mixture of respect, gratitude, and fear. "The final Vexari stronghold surrendered yesterday," she announces, her voice carrying easily through the vast space. "Their empire has been dismantled. The 17 civilizations they subjugated are being assisted in rebuilding. The threat is ended." A murmur passes through the assembled representatives. The Ashera counselor rises, her luminescent skin pulsing with complex emotions. "And what of humanity?" she asks directly. "Will your kind return to the peaceful facade you maintained before the invasion? Or is this," she gestures to Rodriguez's military insignia, "your true face?" The chamber falls silent. Every representative leans forward, awaiting her answer to the question that has troubled the Concordat since witnessing humanity's transformation from diplomats to warriors. Rodriguez studies the faces around her, alien physiologies expressing universal concerns. How can we trust them? What are they, really? She takes a deliberate breath, choosing honesty over diplomacy. "There was never a facade," she states firmly. "The art we shared with you, that was real. The philosophical discourse, the medical advancements, the cultural exchanges, all genuine expressions of humanity." She activates a holodisplay showing Earth, blue oceans, green continents, swirling white clouds. "But this is also real," she continues, the display shifting to show Earth's natural disasters, its predators, its historical conflicts. "We evolved on a world that demanded vigilance, where peace was precious because it was fragile, where every generation knew both creation and destruction." The Trilaxian Prime Minister, his tentacles interwoven in a gesture of contemplation, speaks. "Yet you concealed your military capacity. You maintained a pretense of limited defensive capabilities while secretly building." He gestures expansively. "All this." Rodriguez nods, acknowledging the accusation. "We did. Because history, both yours and ours, suggested it was necessary." She taps a command, and the display shows images the Concordat representatives recognize with shock. ancient records of their own species engaged in warfare, conquest, brutality. Your histories claim you evolved beyond violence, Rodriguez says quietly. Ours taught us to be prepared for it while working toward something better. We didn't become civilized by eliminating our capacity for violence. We became civilized by choosing when not to use it. Elder Lorax rises, his translucent form shimmering with complex bioluminescence. Do you know what the Firuli word for human has become in our common speech? He asks. Veshnath. It means the guardians who carry the necessary darkness. The chamber stirs, different species conferring among themselves. Rodriguez waits, understanding that this moment will define humanity's place in the greater community of worlds. Eventually, the Concordat's Supreme Counselor rises. The ancient Pelori's crystalline exoskeleton catches the light as he addresses the assembly. For millennia, we believed peace came from transcending our violent origins, he says, his translator rendering his musical speech into standard language. We were wrong. It came from forgetting them. And that forgetting left us vulnerable. He turns to Rodriguez. Humanity brought art and knowledge to our Concordat. But your greatest gift was remembering what we chose to forget, that the universe contains both creation and destruction, and to survive requires acknowledging both. A formal vote is called. The holograms record each representative's decision. The resolution passes with unprecedented unanimity. Humanity will assume responsibility for Concordat Defense Forces, integrating their concealed military technology and training with the existing ceremonial structures. As the session concludes, Ambassador Wei approaches Rodriguez privately. They're already calling it the Pax Humana in diplomatic circles, he tells her. Human peace. Rodriguez watches the representatives filing out, seeing how they unconsciously give human delegates slightly more space than before. Not quite fear, but awareness. Recognition of their nature. Peace through strength, she murmurs. The oldest story in human history. Wei nods, his diplomat's smile returning with practiced ease. The difference is scale. Now we guard not just our villages or nations or planet, but an entire galactic community. Rodriguez glances at the departing counselors, considering the enormous responsibility humanity has accepted. They'll never look at us the same way again. Good. Wei replies simply. The mask was getting uncomfortable.